It's a very cool project we will be working on today. So I'm really excited about this. I've been planning this for a long time, and we are doing this for a good cause as well, because we are working with a charity, Amazon Aid, which this is actually part of a project which started out as a contest. And I'm going to show the entries that we got from people who took part in it. And I'm going to announce the winners, although we already reached out to them before. But the main subject, or the main thing that we will be doing today, is that I am going to approach this project myself, and I am going to try to tackle it and create a poster within this workshop. So during this workshop, we will start pretty much from scratch, although I've done some research, some planning, some sketching, some ideation. I also used AI to come up with a couple of different compositions and styles. But generally, we will be doing the work live, and there's a lot of things that are still not clear. I haven't decided what to do, so I will be relying on all of you joining live to help me out. So like always, I want this to be a collaborative effort where we can work together and we can create something awesome, like in the previous workshops. So it's great to see some familiar names. I can see Robin is here, Elisa is here, Diana, Sarah. Yeah, I can see many of you who've been with us for a long time, whether you are a pro member, learning from our courses, maybe took part in some of our contests, or just following us on YouTube. Welcome. I'm glad you joined us today. And just so you know, this will be a fairly long workshop, similarly to the other ones that we've done before. So it's going to be around 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours long. So yeah, it's gonna be a longer one. And let me just make sure the session is recorded. Although here on YouTube it's going to be available right after we wrap up. So obviously anyone can join live, but that's good. And just double checking, hopefully you can hear me well. You can see my screen. This is the main screen I will be using. I'm just gonna jump over to Photoshop as well. And please, if you can, just let me know in the chat if you can see everything. That would be great. And if you can hear me clearly. All right, let me just wait a little bit longer. And while I'm waiting, I'm actually going to show some of the student work that we got for this project. So we have the, I can briefly show the brief itself as well. So this is actually for a curriculum called the River of Gold, which is about, the main thing is to showcase the impact of gold mining in the Amazon region. And there are 6 lessons. Each lesson focuses on different aspects of this problem. And we asked students to choose some of these topics and also try to create like an overall hero poster that covers everything. We can call it the master poster. And we laid down a couple of visual directions that we recommended to use, out of which my favorite one, and this is the one I'm going to try to use today, is the montage or collage. And I will mainly be using illustrative details, but it's supposed to be a combination of illustration and photographs put together. And that's the visual direction that I am going to go for. But I wanted to show also some of the submitted work that we got from the people who took part in this. And the winner, these were the 3 winners. We have Robin and Elisa also here on the stream, so they can maybe explain a bit more of their workflow if they want to share something that they find interesting about this project. So there are some other really good work here as well, but I'm just going to highlight quickly some of the work that the client, both the charity Amazon Aid and us at Yes, I'm a Designer really liked. So this is Robin's work. We have a focus here on this composition on the indigenous people of the region, and I really like this like tagline or subtitle, the Guardians of the Amazon. I think that's really cool. I love this symmetrical composition, but I also really like in Robin's work these vertical lines showcasing both important words, like here we have wisdom, sacred knowledge, we have traditions, indigenous culture, but we also have the patterns featured, the Amazonian patterns from the various tribes that are there. It's a very rich culture. I mean, there's so many different tribes and they have different customs and traditions. I am not an expert of this. I've just seen in my research some amazing images. The closest I've been to the Amazon was Costa Rica, and that was also just an amazing place to be. And I hope in the future I can get to South America and explore the Amazon region. But we can see that the other compositions by Robin follow the same structure, again using these vertical lines and like a multi-layered composition. Again, typography plays an important part, but I really like how the colors work together. We have this textural details as well, and then we have the same thing for biodiversity, focusing on the animals and plants. And then we have also the actual gold mining and the effect or impact of that on the region. Okay, now we also have some nice illustrations created by Elisa. These are completely different illustrative style, but I really like this as well. It's very eye-catching, it's very impactful, and I love these signs at the bottom, the way like when there's like construction or danger, really gets our attention. I also like the framing of each of these compositions, and yeah, so these are really cool. And this is actually a similar composition to what I have in mind, with a giant tree in the middle. I believe the most important tree, or the most symbolic or most relevant tree for the region, is the kapok tree. There's a couple of different names for it, but that's the one I believe this is supposed to be as well. But that's the one I'm going to use for my composition. I will talk about that a little bit later. But now we also have the third place was taken by Asma, who did more infographic style compositions. So there's a lot of information compressed into these, and these are great because it's important to know that these posters are supposed to be created for schools. So they are for, and this is again important, these are for college students. So if I go back to the original brief, that was a bit of a misunderstanding at the beginning, the target audience or the age group. But yeah, it's important to say it's high school students from ages between 15 and 17. So they can be a little bit more detailed, these compositions, so they don't have to be focusing on younger kids. Instead, it's supposed to be a bit more serious. So there can be more context and more information, but at the same time, in my opinion, I think it doesn't have to be like an infographic, because I would prefer students to have an impression looking at this poster instead of trying to get close and really study it from close up. I feel like if there is a big poster in a classroom, I remember from my time in school, there were things that really impacted me just simply seeing it from a distance. If it's always there on the wall, it will really resonate and like I remember it for a long time. So I want to create something impactful that is already engaging from a distance, and then maybe there will be more information when someone looks at it close up. So smaller typographic details and additional detail that we add. But that will come later. So yeah, really great work on the submissions. But today I would like to focus on the actual workflow that I am going to do. So without any further delay, I am going to jump back to my board that I created for this workshop. And as you can see, I have quite a lot of information here. This is pretty much my research, so I didn't want to waste time during the workshop showing you how I do my research. But what I've done is to create a sort of list of important terms that I need to keep in mind for each of the lessons. So because there are 6 lessons, 6 main topics, which you can see here, like gold mining, rainforest ecology, biodiversity, so on and so forth. And then I try to collect 10 important terms for each of these, out of which I highlighted some that I believe I will be able to visualize. And that's important because some terms are very hard to visualize, very hard to explain without having more textual information. So something like, I don't know, nutrient cycle, for instance, that needs to be more infographic to be able to explain that. Or even soil erosion, maybe that's something that we could show. Let me show you another one, maybe something like climate regulation or albedo effect. Feedback loop. There's a lot of things that obviously once you go into more detail, you can explain it with an infographic style composition where you have lots of little icons and you show comparisons and back it up with data. But when it comes to something a bit more visually appealing and cohesive composition instead of small little details, then I felt like these are the ones that I could include and incorporate, like the environmental defenders from the indigenous communities, the ancestral lens, the spiritual connection, we could have the endangered species, the canopy, deforestation, wildlife disruption, river contamination. That's a very important one because the mercury that is used in certain types of gold mining, it would be going into the rivers and pollute the rivers and the soil. But then besides these, I also went into researching a bit on tribal motifs, and I want to incorporate these and use them more like fillers, so details that will hold the composition together. And there's a few of these from the various tribes in the region that are important, like the spiral, the serpent, the frog, the leaf, zigzag, eye, animal tracks, sunburst or radiating lines, feather, and geometric grids. And we can see some of these here in these images that I found that are really interesting. And then also we have this Pinterest board collected by Cian, where we can see some of these images. Now I'm not 100% sure whether these are all accurate and really are from this region. There might be some of them that are not correct, but they are definitely seem more legit and not AI generated at least. So I think like this one is a really good example as well. But yeah, so there's lots of good examples. And by the way, we will be talking a lot about AI as well. And right now I'm just mentioning it because during your research process, if you want to keep your composition authentic or real, it's important to like choose your sources well for your research, because it can easily be influenced by images that were generated that are completely fake or it's just not real. So yeah, you have to be very careful when you collect references. And let me just also go up a bit here. So I also collected some of the iconic Amazon animals and plants, and there is the kapok tree, which is, yeah, it's like it can grow really tall, and it can be home to countless species. And here is an example of this tree, really towering above all the other trees. So these trees are already quite big. I can see some palm trees there, but the kapok tree is really big, can grow really high. And yeah, in the region, in the Amazon region, they also call it lupuna, I believe that's how it's pronounced, or seibo. There's lots of other terms for it. They even call it drunken tree in some parts. And I actually seen maybe subspecies or similar trees to this, or maybe yeah, it's actually the same tree in various places that I visited. I mentioned Costa Rica. Here, me and my wife went there, I believe, a bit more than 10 years ago, and here we are on a similar tree. This might actually be a kapok tree, which was, yeah, I mean, the sheer scale of this doesn't really come across, but the fact that we are sitting on a vine, just a vine hanging from the tree, is just shows a bit the scale. Here's another one. I believe, again, it's a similar type of tree in Australia, in Sydney. So it's not just in the Amazon region, but yeah, these roots, the trunk of the tree is very recognizable, and that's something that I really want to feature in the composition. Here's another image of people standing at the bottom between the roots of the tree, which is crazy. So yeah, it's like a wall. The roots form these walls, which, yeah, very unique. All right, so. And then, yeah, we have a few images of indigenous people. I love this photo of the kids playing with the pigs. But there's a really cool photo as well of the guardians of the forest. So these are people from Ecuador, and it's an article by National Geographic. Here's another nice image as well of a celebration of, I think it's a coming of age celebration for the kids. And then I also collected a few images for the deforestation, the threats, and yeah, I mean, this is very hard to include in a composition, an image something like this, because you have to show the scale of it, like how much of the forest is missing. So I'm not sure if I will be able to incorporate this, but this is just a reminder of what happens. And this is, amongst many other things, this is the biggest problem. Not just the lack of carbon sink when we are losing these forests. So there is nothing to take out the carbon from the air and keep it inside. So that those are the trees, obviously, but that's also causes the albedo effect, that there is more reflective surfaces, and it leads to global warming when you have no forest. Instead, you have these big like pools of water and just dry land. But yeah, so we have a couple of harvester machines as references, and we also have these images from a show that I really liked, and I always loved the opening credits. It's from the Yellowstone series. It starts, the whole opening credits is about the effect of industry on the land, and it's like the pollution, construction, again, like mining equipment, and then forest fires. So yeah, the opening credits, I think, is really deep for that show, and yeah, I always liked the way it was done and the message of it. So that's also a good reference for us. I always thought that could be used for this project. Now, more interestingly, here is my sketch that I created that I have in mind for this poster, where we will have this giant tree in the middle, and I want to split the image into two. So on the left, we will have the negative effect of gold mining and what is happening right now in the region. So I'm just going to open this up in Photoshop so we can see it better. And on the right side, we have what we are losing. So I'm still not sure whether this is the right order. So have the negative things on the left and the positive things on the right, or vice versa. But I like to think that on the right side, it's better to keep the things that we prefer or what we want to preserve, and the left side can be the threat. So if we flip this around, so this is just an interesting little exercise. If we flip this around, even though there's no colors yet, it's just a sketch, you can already start to see that it becomes more like a before and after, where we know that this is what's happening. This is the process from nice things, natural things. We end up having, we are losing nature. We are losing these precious things. So if we want to really be focusing on negative effects, it might be even more impactful to have it like this. But I like to think that aesthetically, it feels better to have the positive things on the right. It feels a bit like we can still save what's there, but there is a threat coming from the left. So this is a bit more psychological to decide on this. So you have to think of a lot of things behind this. Whenever you create a composition, that's always important to keep that in mind. Like, how would people perceive what you create? Remember, as a designer, you are communicating visually, so you have to think about all the subliminal messaging as well. That is not just simply drawing things and creating a composition, but really thinking about these things underneath the composition. So yeah, this split down in the middle might be a little bit of a cliche, but because there is, in terms of the composition, but because it's a very complex topic, and when I looked at all the terms that I collected, there were a lot of things that are positive and a lot of things that are negative, and to put all of these together into a single composition, this is the idea that I had, that's probably the best way I can combine all of them together and still create a cohesive composition. Now, let me know what you think already here in the beginning. When you look at this, can you imagine this working or not? And by the way, just so you can see, most of this is I sketched this apart from the cow and the jaguar. I just didn't want to spend too much time sketching those animals out, so I just quickly dropped into pencil sketches of them. But the rest I sketched myself. This woman is actually a sketch from like a previous composition that I worked on. I just brought it in here, and I very quickly put this together just before this workshop to have an idea where we are going. So now that I have this, and now that you know what I want to achieve, oh yeah, maybe one last note here. The cow, why do I have a cow on the left? That is because although cows, I'm not against cows or anything like that, but cows are one of the main problems, or like cattle, again, cutting down trees and clearing out big chunks of the rainforest for cattle is one of the biggest problems. So if I go into, let me just go into threats to the Amazon, we can see cattle ranching is one of the highest one. It actually says the largest driver of deforestation in the Amazon. Okay, so it's not the cow's fault. It's the farmers and the cattle ranching that is causing a problem. Yeah, and obviously that's not the that's not the natural. I mean, there's cows in South America as well, of course, but not in this jungle and rainforest areas. So that's why they have to change the ecosystem for it to work for cattle. But yeah, that's why I have that there. There will be a couple of additional things that I want to include here, but generally I want the left side of the tree to look dead, the right side of it to be lush, and generally the style of the image, again, I want to be made up of more darker tones on the left and more vibrant tones on the right to really clearly sell the division between the two sides. And also I just wanted to show that there's a few experiments that I've done, and you've probably seen the thumbnail image for this video or workshop was this image, which I actually created with a couple of experimentation in Midjourney. So I used some of my own illustrations, some of my own compositions, and then merging it with a couple of additional references, I came up with this style that I really like. So this halftone pattern, collage, using photos and illustration and simple patterns in the background. And then I further played around with this, extending it out. This is how I imagine it. So have a nice like soft color in the background, and then on top of that we have the composition, and it's fading out into like a negative space. So I don't want to have the whole poster filled. I want to have negative space around the edges, and then things would be floating but nicely merging into that space. So that's how I imagine it. And yeah, so you can imagine, I mean, there's a few additional examples here, some really cool effects on these as well. Like I like this stippled effect on this portrait that also looks really cool from a textural point of view. And generally the colors I also really like. So this is the color palette that I'm going for as well. But the challenge is, and this is what today is going to be about mainly, how can we apply this style to this composition? How can we put this together while maintaining full creative control over every little detail? So this is where we have to start thinking. Okay, we can do this obviously in Photoshop. We can bring in photos and start photo bashing in a way, putting photos together, retouch them, mask them out and move things around, and then try to achieve this look, but with that composition that I created in my sketch. So that's one way of doing it. That's how I would have done it a couple of years ago, before AI. The other option, of course, is that we do the whole thing illustratively, so with illustration in most likely Adobe Illustrator or Procreate, drawing everything, and that's basically what I've done here. Just obviously go over this and make it more detailed. And I believe for this style it would probably work better to work in raster format, so I would most likely use Procreate, but it can also be achieved with vector graphic and use Illustrator. So that is probably the most time consuming, but that probably would be the most expressive in terms of artistic style, because it would be very personal. It would really be relying on everything that I draw myself. Now there is the third option, when we will be also utilizing AI and not fully relying on AI, but we will allow certain things to be handled by AI while trying to maintain as much control as we can. So since this is still a new area, incorporating AI in our workflow, I most likely will be focusing on this. If we went down the illustration workflow route, we would be spending days. So that just simply, technically, it's not possible to fit into a live stream. But and if you are interested to see that type of workflow, my Illustrator Fast Track course is the perfect place to start, where I take illustrations from sketches like these to fully realized illustrations. So I can just show some examples of that course. If we go into here, actually, here's a more easier way to see it. Yeah, so we have some sketches, like let's say this lighthouse, and then how that turns into a fully detailed vector illustration. Or here's the skater girl, again from sketch to vector artwork, or these stylized portraits. Here's another one with the guy. So yeah, these are examples of how I would approach this if I was drawing things, everything myself, without relying on AI. And if I want to rely on AI, of course, I'm just going to jump back here to the workshop. Like I mentioned before, I will try to maintain creative control as much as possible throughout the process, which means I would want to be able to move things independently, but AI works well usually when there is connection between the elements. So instead of individually generating every element and then trying to put them together, it's usually better to create an overall image that feels consistent. But because there are so many elements here, and especially we have a very different visual look that we want to achieve on the left side and the right side, I definitely will be breaking down this into multiple generations, and then we will see how we can blend them all together. Okay, let me just have a quick look at the comments or the chat. So Alisa is saying, my idea was to design the 3 posters as one continuous drawing that forms a complete composition when placed side by side. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this approach. Yeah, that's a really cool idea. Yeah, so because obviously in the contest we asked people to pick 3 of the topics. It would have been really cool if you place these posters next to each other to have like a continuous story. I really like that idea. So in case this is a series, which the charity was planning to do for this posters, I really like that, the fact that they can be connected, but probably working separately as well. I like that. All right, but coming back, I would like to start with the tools that we can use. So we have, obviously, Midjourney is great for coming up with styles, like looks, visual styles. And you can see I've done a couple of styles here. I experimented with different prompts and different style references. And this is definitely my favorite image. I think it worked really well. And then I also created an expanded, more horizontal version of it. But then I further experimented, and there are some strange results when the jaguar face is split with the woman's face. But yeah, we have more like portrait formats as well. This is also really nice. I really like this style too. So Midjourney is really probably still the best tool for aesthetically pleasing images. It's really good at creating things that look good and is eye-catching and interesting. But it's not the best tool for maintaining control over the composition. And I'm going to show you how you can use the editor in Midjourney. So that's going to be one of the techniques that we will try out. So I will already switch over to the editor, and I'm going to edit this image. So I'm going to start with my sketch. Because in Midjourney, there is this feature called retexture. And retexture can essentially take whatever is in your canvas and then use that as a compositional reference and then create something based on that. Now, of course, you can drop images here. You can have multiple layers, just like in Photoshop. So we would be able to add additional images if we wanted to. And yeah, there's a lot of things we can do. Of course, you can also rely on personalization, mood boards, and profiles. And then we have lots of additional settings. We can, of course, add style references as well, image prompts, and omni-reference now in the new version. So there's a lot of things we can do here. But first of all, I just want to give this a try. So having my sketch in here, we have the prompt vibrant montage about the Amazon rainforest, featuring the portrait of indigenous woman and the jaguar, composition in the center with a lot of negative space around it. I'm just going to take that out. And about the Amazon rainforest, I would say featuring a giant kapok tree in the middle. Half left side is dead and barren, right side is lush and healthy. On the right, the portrait of indigenous woman and the jaguar. On the left, image of a cow and harvester machines. Yeah, maybe something like that. So that is the prompt. I'm just going to copy the prompt, and I make sure I switch over to retexture. And of course, we could suggest a prompt based on the selected layer. So let's see what that would be. I made sure I copied the prompt from the top, but if we were to rely on what Midjourney understood from our drawing, it would be saying line art drawing of the tree of life with a woman, jaguar, a dog as elements on a white background. Okay, yeah, I mean that cow could be seen as a dog, and I have to admit, but yeah, let's just do our original prompt. I'm going to stick with that. And then the important thing for this is that I want to use, so this is my own illustration. I could use this as style reference, but I think I'm going to use that image that I just saved. I think it's this one is going to be the best. So I'm just going to download this image, drop it onto my desktop, and then I can drop it in here. So that's going to be my style reference. Okay. By the way, you can drag and drop your references between these three different options. But yeah, I will keep it on style reference for now. And I believe that's all we need to do for now. So let's just submit this. Actually, let me check the settings. So we are in 7, the latest model. 3 to 4 portrait format is good. Stylization set to 200. I think that should be fine. And I don't have any personalization turned on at the moment, I believe. Yes, it's turned off. So I'm just going to rely on what this is going to look like. So besides Midjourney, there are also other tools that can turn compositions that you create into something more detailed. But Midjourney is actually doing a really good job maintaining the composition that you create with your sketch. And we can already see a few of these looking quite good. Like this one is actually quite impressive. If I go on a little bit more closer view on them, maybe if we close the settings, let me see, upscale to gallery. No. If I go into create, will it not show up here? No. I can't remember. Submit, edit. Yeah, let's just see which one is the best out of these. I think it's probably this one I like the most. So if I say upscale to gallery, it should be showing up here in the create tab as well. So that's probably in the editor is just like a preview, but we can submit this again just to see what we get. Or changes to submit. Yeah. Oh yeah, we have to go to retexture again. So I'm just going to do another round while that is working. So in the create, we see that it's almost ready with the upscaled version. Okay, so it's not bad because it's maintaining quite a lot of the like visual style of my reference that I liked. It also followed really closely in certain aspects of my sketch. It even kept that little swirl there at the bottom. It has the birds here on the top. And it understood what I explained in my prompt to have the tree dead on the left and lush on the right side, which obviously wasn't clear from the sketch. So, I mean, it's a very vague and rough sketch, but it did a good job interpreting the prompt. And then the cow on the left, although it looks a bit more like a dog, it's in the right place. The jaguar on the right, and we have this harvesting equipments or vehicles on the left side. So that's not bad. It's a good start. But let's go back to the editor and let's see this new batch of images. Okay, so this is also quite a nice batch. Okay, yeah, there are some interesting examples here. So I really like this one. I'm just going to upscale this to the gallery as well. And one thing that's important to mention already in the beginning, I'm going to upscale this as well. So it's worth doing a couple of rounds. Instead of just relying on the first batch of 4, if you do multiple rounds, so you just have to always go back to retexture and go back to your original drawing and then resubmit it. Maybe refine your prompt a bit. Maybe you can tweak things like, for instance, now I can increase the stylization to 400 and let's see what happens then. So it's worth tweaking things if you're not 100% happy about how things turn out, and then just choose the variations that you like and then upscale those. But most importantly, once you have multiple images, of course, you can download those, put them all into Photoshop and start masking details out. So you can start combining the things that you like from one with things that you like from the other examples. So now we already have this one where I really like the face, the woman's face. It looks really accurate for this particular composition, while this one, not bad. But yeah, I like this look, like a very serious look. I think it works for the composition. While here I like more the tree and also these radiating lines on the top and the half-tone pattern in the background. It's quite nice. And also the equipment. So yeah, it's like a combination of things that already out of these three I would be able to imagine putting together. But like I said, it's worth checking what happens if we tweak the settings. And with a higher stylization, we got some interesting results. Like I quite like this one as well. Again, out of the four, I like only one. But I mean, even there's some cool things here. I like this as well. So once again, if we come back to retexture, go to the original image, and then we say go back here, go down to 300, and what else can we change? Yeah, I think probably that's enough. I'm just going to do one last round, and without spending too much time on this, I will show you what happens in the end. So once we download these images, what we can do with them. And I will be showing you a couple of different tools, and I know some of you might not have access to Midjourney. So I will be showing you something that is actually free to use, and something where you can achieve similar results. So I'll show you that in a second. And then GPT, someone's asking about ChatGPT. We will also look at ChatGPT, of course, because ChatGPT is actually quite good at interpreting sketches. So I'm just going to drop that in here so I don't forget. I can already say create an image, add photos, and there's my sketch. And then I can drop in the this, and then we can even drop in the image as a reference, that one, and I'll say use color image as style reference. So we can already start this in the background in ChatGPT, just so we can compare things. But yeah, coming back to Midjourney, we can see that we have again a couple of interesting results. There's not much difference here when I change the stylization. Again, it's more about the small variation on the same theme. Yeah, I think what we already chose is going to work well. Here the tree really looks like those roots look like the kapok tree's roots, so I quite like that one. For that reason, I might take this one as a upscale version. So if I scroll up here, we have one last one starting here that is going to be generated. Now, the main difference in ChatGPT is that it's usually taking longer and it only generates a single image compared to multiple options to choose from in Midjourney. And I am not 100% sure whether it understood the fact that we want to use that image as the style reference and the other one as the compositional reference, because there is no like user interface to really be specific about what we want to do with them. We have to rely more on the understanding of this conversational prompting that we are doing. I haven't used Wandy. Anas is asking about another tool. I haven't used that yet. I will have a look. So Wandy. Yeah, I haven't seen this one before. There's so many tools like this, but yeah, thanks for mentioning. I will give it a look. But let's take a look at this. And by the way, if Anas, if you can explain why you like Wandy, I would appreciate that. So this is a really cool interpretation of the prompt and the sketch that I had. What I like in here is that it really took that style on board that I had in the reference, and it's clearly has that look of an indigenous person from the region. The jaguar looks like a jaguar. We have the cows, and even the perspective is working quite well, because we have a perspective, vanishing lines pointing in the middle, and the tree, it disappears behind the person. I quite like that. So we don't actually see the roots, we just see the canopy, and we see the birds flying out. I'm not a big fan of having two cows on the left, so I would definitely remove one of those. But this is where also ChatGPT can be useful, because you can describe what you want to add, remove, or replace. So if I just say replace, oh, and by the way, these are not harvesting, not forestry harvesting machines. Maybe I wasn't clear in my prompt. Let me just check, what was the prompt? Yeah, harvester machines. I should have said, I think they are called, can't remember the name, but like this one, it's a tree harvester. That's important to mention. So that was my fault, I wasn't clear enough. So if I come back to this one, so I click on it, and then click on the image, and then I can say remove remove the cow, remove the second cow from the bottom, and add more machines. Instead of harvesters, make them into forest harvesters. Was that the name? Again, I forgot. What was it called? Tree harvester, sorry. Yeah, let's go back. Tree harvester. Into tree harvesters and logging machines. Okay. Yeah. Also remove the birds from the left side of the composition. We want that to look more dead, so I don't want the birds to be there on that side. Okay. Make the birds on the right look more like these are the birds. Let me just go back here to the animals. I think the best ones would be to use macaws. Yeah, which applies to the region again. Okay, so we gave a lot of instruction to ChatGPT, so let's see what it's going to be able to do with that, and how well it's going to maintain the original image, which there's a lot of aspects of it that I like, but there were things that I didn't like about it. So let's see what it's going to do. But one of the things that you can see here straight away is that even though we use this as a reference, maybe because I wasn't specific about it, it lost a bit of that quality. So if I open this in a new image, it does have the halftone effect showing a bit, but this looks a bit more like a Rizzo print, which is cool as well. But yeah, it's not exactly the same texture quality, but I like it. But what's more important is that it's fully illustrative now. So it's not like a collage or montage of photos and illustrations. It's fully illustrative. So it's going down in a slightly different path. But the good thing is that we can obviously use this as our reference later on. If we like the composition, we just want to tweak details on it. So, oh yes, and there are some really good points here. Sarah is saying, what if we show the pits on the left side? Yes, so like the missing forests and the pits of like mining. And then Sebastian saying maybe some smoke pollution is great, or for fire. That's really good as well. Okay, now it did remove the cow. It added the tree harvesters. They really look like tree harvesters, apart from this bottom one, which looks strange. But the other two look like tree harvesters. There is also a logging machine on the right, although again that looks a little bit weird. And there are the two macaws on the right. It still left two birds on the left, but that's fine. But generally the composition stayed very similar, and yeah, it tried its best to do all that in one step that I explained. Now, there is no way of drawing over. Now, actually, there is a way here on the right, so we can select something. So we can paint over this section that I don't like. So all of that I don't like. I don't like this either. And then I can just say show effects results of deforestation on the left, deforestation and mining on the left, and then maybe we can have a nice frog on the right side, just to again double down on the indigenous, I mean the natural habitat or natural wildlife that we have there. I think it's called the poison dart frog. Add a poison dart frog on the bottom right. Okay, let's do that. Oh yes, and I forgot the pollution, the smoke. I like that smoke idea as well, but we can include that as a second step. Okay, so this is one of the biggest advantages of ChatGPT over Midjourney, that you are really doing a conversational iteration. So you talk to the AI and explain what you don't like, what you like, and yeah, like we can even make a selection. Hopefully it understood that those are the things that we want to change, and it will maintain the rest of the image. To be honest, I haven't used it for my. I haven't used ChatGPT heavily for graphic design projects, but I can see the potential in it, and it did really well in our last workshop as well. That's when it was brand new. So before DALL-E, that is the model or the engine behind ChatGPT's image generation, has improved a lot, or significantly recently, like a couple of weeks ago. And since then it became a really like a true contender for a viable solution for creating complex compositions. And yeah, the best thing is that you can go back and forth with the AI and refine the results that you're working on. Now, Firefly, as many of you are asking about Firefly, that's also a really cool tool to work with. And I am going to use it. Now look at that. That's getting very interesting. Not 100% sure about the Jaguar anymore, but don't forget we can always combine previously created images with these ones. I also like the frog, but it's just too big. But again, that's something that I can easily fix. Again, the equipment itself, like the harvester, is connected into another harvester that can also be easily fixed. But generally, I like the composition, and I like the colors being more like red on the left side. So even though we are not seeing smoke, it feels like a really polluted area or detail. And of course, this tree and the birds we could easily remove. But yeah, there's lots of things I like about this. So what we can do is maybe to save this already. So this is going to be an interesting one to work with. We can bring it into Photoshop, and I will also bring in the original image because I like the textures and the people in this one a lot more. So I'm just going to open this as well in here, and then let's combine these two. So I drop the other image. Let's copy this. Why is it not copying it? And then let's just place it over the other image. So yeah, and we will be able to combine a couple of things in here. Yeah, I actually really like this original composition. I think if we just removed what we don't like here, and let's see what happens if we use Firefly instead, because obviously Firefly is the tool that is baked into Photoshop. So let's see what happens if I just remove this and say generative fill, and I want to have tree harvesters, effects of deforestation. Yeah, I think that's, and trees on fire. Let's see what happens if we do that. I like the fact that now in Photoshop you get a note on which image model is used, because Firefly is now in its fourth generation, but it's actually telling us that it's not using the most latest one, it's using image model 3. And you can't switch to 4 yet. Even though I'm using the beta version of Photoshop, it still uses image model 3. So 4 is only available in the browser at the moment. But we can actually see that there is the original model still available here, Firefly image 1. There's only 1 year difference between the two when they were released. But yeah, I like the fact that now we can finally see which model is being used. But as you can see, it tries its best to blend in with the style that we have here, but it's not doing a great job in terms of aesthetically pleasing results. So this is probably the best out of the 3, and let's just give it another go. Maybe I'm just going to say simplify it a bit and say the effects of deforestation might be a bit too complex for the AI. I just say tree harvesters and trees on fire. So let's do that. I like the fact that, I mean, again, this is like logically doesn't make sense of having a tree trunk on fire. It's just like, yeah, it combined obviously the things that I had in the prompt in a way that doesn't really make sense. Okay. So this probably is the best so far. So it really shows a person who is like, yeah, cutting down the tree, and then there is also fire behind him. It's not really showing the mining equipment, which is fine, or tree harvester equipment. But yeah, it's not exactly what I wanted. Again, this doesn't really, it just looks like a generic truck. Most importantly, I don't really like the details that we can see here. It's just a bit like strange. So the main issue is that it's not the latest model. So Firefly image model 4 would be much better already, and we can give it a try. So if we jump over to, you can see, by the way, I use Firefly to create those quick sketches of the Jaguar. So if I drop in my prompt, let's see, is this the most recent one? Yes. And then I'm going to use my compositional reference, which we have here. That's the sketch. And then I want style reference to be that one. And then I'm not going to change the weight or the strength on these. I just want to make sure it's not square, it's a portrait. And now I'm going to use image model 4. And I think that's it. I'm not going to change anything else. I will also make sure it's set to art. Yeah, that's good. And then let's generate. One of the best things about Firefly recently that improved a lot is that it's allows to keep your history of the generated images. That was always one of the reasons I chose not to use Firefly, because yeah, I just always lost what I created unless I saved them. But yeah, I mean, we can see that visually, I mean, aesthetically, I am not a big fan of the results, but there are some interesting aspects of them. Like, instead of having a lot of things going on, we have a larger portrait on the right, and the tree looks sort of like a kapok tree, and then we can see the contrast of the left and the right, the negative and the positive, which is not bad. But what if I increase the compositional strength? So I increase that more. Let's see what happens. It should continue, it should follow my composition a little bit more closely. Okay, yeah, starting to look a little bit more interesting. And I like how it maintained the original visual style as well. So here we have another example, another one. That's also quite interesting, that it's like almost as if the person is part of the tree. That's quite cool. Not sure if it's helping or just getting a bit distracting. That's definitely too much. But yeah, this is quite interesting composition. And this is one thing that I like about AI. So the thing I don't like about AI is when I feel like I'm not in control, and it just creates things that just are not consistent. However, these happy accidents, when it strays off and just does its thing, creating things randomly, and hallucinating things as well, that is actually very similar to a creative process which is not completely restricted, or it has a bit more freedom to do exploration. So it's good to let the AI loose a bit in certain cases, and try not to be so fixated on an idea. So consider the AI almost like another person who is just coming up with ideas, and you can maybe see some potential in some of those ideas or compositions, even if it's not exactly what you had in mind. Like this one again has the person looking towards the left, which again could be interesting. I'm not saying that works well, but this once more is quite nice. The cow here on the left, in that form, I don't think it works, but I quite like the style that we see on the right side. So there's already a lot of things here that we can work with. And we can still do one more round of generations with the style reference also pumped up to the maximum. So both references will be used at the maximum strength. And then we get an interesting result again. Quite like that one. It simplified it a lot, but it does apply the style quite nicely. And this is also quite interesting. Very cool portrait I like. And I also like the machine sort of on the left. Obviously there's always strange stuff, like the tree turns more into like a, I don't know, like a flower. That doesn't make sense, but yeah, there's some interesting results. There's two portraits here. The jaguar is missing in all of these, by the way, even though I think we mentioned it. Yeah, we mentioned the jaguar, but it's missing in all of these compositions. Actually, there's one which shows the jaguar, but on the left side. So Firefly is still really good. But let's just jump back here in ChatGPT, and actually we already brought this in here, and we try to remove those details. So instead of removing them with the generative fill, what I can do is to use a mask, just simply a layer mask, set this to black, and then start painting over it and start introducing those machines and blend these two images together. So yeah, something like that. And then what's up here, yeah, we can probably keep that for now. Maybe just bring this down a bit more there. Okay, I'm not going to do any like refined selections because it doesn't make sense at this point. I'm just trying to blend these two things together, and then what we can do is keep it at that for now. Yeah, and obviously this little segment here, we could try to use the remove tool on a separate layer. I'm just going to try to remove this detail, and let's see what happens. So instead of the generative fill, I'm just using the remove tool, because that obviously doesn't make sense. The machine should have maybe logs in there. Okay, that didn't work. Let's just try again with, I'm just going to describe this with generative fill, a tree harvester, no, logs, cut down tree logs in held by tree harvester, harvester's claw. It's quite complex prompt. I don't know if Firefly can understand this. Let's see. Once we, okay, so we got some very strange results as well. Yeah, one of the biggest problems with generative fill that I find, and it actually applies to most of the other tools, is that when you start patching up things, so when there's already something generated in the background and then you add layers on top of that, again, which is generated, it's becoming, I think it's called model breakdown or something like that, where it becomes like, yeah, like it gets out of hand. The perspective is wrong, the scale is wrong. It's just, yeah, like it's getting very messy, and you can't really use it. Like here as well, it's far from perfect, but it's still better than what we had there before. So I'm just gonna go with that for now. I'm just gonna delete that layer, and I will show a bit more of that detail. And by the way, we can also just quickly take off these things here. So I don't want these trees to be here. One good thing about the remove tool is that you don't have to paint over everything. You just have to paint around what you don't want, and then it's going to automatically fill it in. And let's see how it's going to remove it for us. And Raz gave a good point, or pointed out something that makes sense. Why don't we use this ChatGPT image as a reference for Firefly? That's what I am planning to do. So I am going to most likely use this also in Midjourney, and we can take it into ChatGPT as well. I'm just going to save a version of this. I will save the PSD file as well on my desktop. So I will just use the same name as before, and I'll save it also as a JPEG in its original size. Yes, that's gonna be fine. And edited. Okay. So yeah, we can check what happens if we drop this into Firefly. So instead of using that other style reference, I can drop this one. And what I'm going to do now differently is that I will use the same image as both style and compositional reference. So like this. So that's my compositional reference and also style reference. I mean, we could keep the style reference the original. I'm just going to reduce the strength on that a bit, and then let's see what happens now. And the prompt, I'll just update 3 harvester machines. That was missing from the prompt. Okay. Interesting results. So this is with maximum strength on the compositional reference and medium strength on the style reference, but using the same image. So I think it got more colored and detailed, mainly because that image was more fully colored to begin with than my sketch. So it lost a little bit of that sketchy quality that we had before, and it ended up being very like fully colored and detailed like these. Not sure if that's a good thing. So if I remove the style reference and we just have a compositional reference, let's see what happens then. So I don't even have a style reference now, and we can actually go back to our original style reference and then do one more of that as well once this one is ready. By the way, Firefly is really fast, so we can already see the next version. It switched over to photo, that's why it looks like this. But let's take a look at them. I mean, it's interesting to see it like this as well, as more like a photographic composition. This is more like it has a cow with 2 heads. This is more like something you would be doing in Photoshop when you start combining images together. And now we got these results. Again, not that great. Maybe let me try one more time if I go back without having no style reference, just compositional reference, but making sure that the art is selected, and then do one more generation like that. So yeah, the results really vary a lot. Okay, so this, even though I said it's art, it's again, because there is no style reference, it is more photographic. But the interesting thing is how consistent it is, the cows look like, even though we didn't have the legs of the cow in the original image, that image that we have here. It understood it thought that that was part of the cow. It's actually merging into the cow, that harvester there. Then it disappears and it just becomes the leg of the cow. So yeah, it's not doing a bad job. Like, this is actually quite a decent job showing the deforestation, the cow on the left, and then the details on the right. So yeah, there is certainly space or place for Firefly to be used, as it's a viable contender as well amongst the AI tools. But I wanted to also show you something that I recently started using. And Raz is just saying something quickly. I will try that as well. So use the ChatGPT image style reference, but minimum strength. So we will go on style reference and the ChatGPT image that we edited with minimum reference, a minimum strength. Yeah, and we have the composition reference. Maybe that can also go down to medium. So there is another site called Flux Playground. This is the official creators of Flux, which is probably the strongest or one of the best image generation models out there, and a lot of other websites or tools are using it as well. Especially the most recent model called Context improved a lot, and they actually have a way you can log in for free and start generating images, and you can even edit these images. You can expand them, you can fill details, you can edit them. So a little bit similar to what ChatGPT can do or Midjourney's editor can do. And you can see that I did a couple of quick tests here. Again, I started off doing more photographic details, but then it started doing these really nicely detailed illustrative images, and some of them stayed really close to the original composition that I had, but then I started making variations on them, and this is where I managed to expand the original images while using the expand feature. So this is also a very interesting one, and if we go into edit, we can just drag and drop an image in here. So we could try dropping in our edited image from ChatGPT, and we could just say the same prompt that we used before, and tree harvester machines on the left. Yes. So let's see what happens if we drop this in here. It's also going to create 4 images based on this, and I mean, it didn't keep the original composition well, and again, the tree in the middle, even though I explained it in my prompt, is not there anymore. But in terms of style, it did some nice things, especially the portraits look nice, but the person looks more Asian to me now. That's one thing that is starting to change here. So, I mean, this probably could be accepted, but yeah, she looks a little bit more Asian. But yeah, so I just wanted to mention Flux Playground. The link I'm just going to drop in here in the chat. You can find there. I believe it's free, at least I haven't been paying for it, and I might run out of credits eventually, but I only started using it recently, so it's also worth giving it a try. And I'm just gonna also try to go into generate instead of say edit, and use the same prompt as from the previous example. So this prompt here, copy, go back, generate, and then drop in that image once again, the edited one, and then you can see I'm using the context model. And if I run this, maybe I forgot to change the aspect ratio. I need this to be 3:4. Yeah, it's still not recognizing that composition as well as like Firefly or Midjourney. It's not sticking to it as much. So yeah, that's one of the main differences. There might be a way of refining that, so I don't see like additional restrictions. It's just simply you can choose an image as your reference, but that's it. So that's maybe the main difference here. But yeah, I mean, you can generate some really cool results, but with not as much control as the other tools. Now, moving on, it's just worth mentioning FreePic as well. FreePic is also a very cool tool, and I managed to create some really trippy images here. Just gonna show some of these. It's pretty much the same prompt that we are using, but I think all I did here was using my sketch as a compositional reference, and it just created some very strange placements for these images. And I'm not saying that it's less effective. Maybe I'm just not using it the right way. But yeah, again, here we are not getting exactly, I mean, it's much further away in terms of where things are and how we want to create things. But again, these hallucinations are hilarious of combining the two animals on the top. What I do like, though, are these people at the bottom. So I really like this woman, for instance, standing there, and the guy cutting the trees down on the left side. So that is something that I feel like could work quite nicely. So whether it's someone facing the left, but I feel like it would make more sense to face to the right, looking to the future, and then this person is also looking to the left. That would make more sense. So that is actually quite a nice detail that I think we can include. So have some characters, some people fully featured, not just a portrait of them. And Anas is, would you be able to put the link into that image? Does it allow to have a link to that image that you generated? If you can, and you can share it in here in the chat, I will bring it up on my screen. That would be interesting to see. So yeah, by the way, if anyone is trying this composition, feel free to share something that you create. Okay. Yes. So now, the reason why I went through all of these is just to demonstrate having these are the tools that probably most people have access to. Some of these are free, some of these are paid, some of these are more effective, some of them are less effective. The main difference between them, I would say, is how aesthetically pleasing the generated images are, and how much control you have. And usually these two things vary, so you don't have both really high in any of these tools. So you are giving up either on the quality or the aesthetics a bit to get more control over where things are, or vice versa. But having everything all in one, it doesn't exist yet, or at least I haven't seen a tool that does that yet, unless you are willing to burn a lot of credits, experiment a lot. But in the end, you might actually be a bit better off doing it by hand, putting things together, like someone mentioned it here, Yash. Just download some stock assets, apply a filter, and it's not that hard. So yeah, we may have already been done with this composition if we just focused on the old school way of doing things, of photo bashing and applying filters, and just relying on putting things together in Photoshop. And I'm not saying that is the wrong approach. So it's definitely, there is a certain limit to what you can achieve with AI. And I would never fully rely on something that was generated with the AI, and I'm not going to do that here either. What I wanted to show is more of an overview of the things that is currently available, and I am going to use these more as inspiration for the final composition that we can start working on now. So I like certain bits that were created here in Midjourney. I also like certain aspects of what ChatGPT came up with. But by the way, it's probably still worth doing this again from scratch in another chat. I found that to be a useful thing to have. And tree harvester machines. And I'm just going to drop these in again, the two images. That one and that one. So yeah, starting a new chat sometimes is better than continuing working in the same one. Just want to give ChatGPT another go on this. But yeah, so we have certain things that, again, Firefly did a good job on. But at this point, and again, this is something that can be a problem, that the more things you create, the harder it becomes to choose what you want to use and what to keep in the final composition. So it's quantity over quality for sure when it comes to AI, because it's just so easy to keep generating and generating and generating, and you just sometimes end up going down a rabbit hole, and then you completely lose the original concept and idea that you had in mind. So once again, I don't want to forget the original sketch that I created, that I want to achieve. So that's still my goal, and I want to realize that as close as possible. So what I'm going to do is to bring in, let me just jump back in here while we are waiting. I'm going to read the okay, so that you see ChatGPT is still the best at really understanding all that like details in the prompt. So this actually simplified the composition a lot, created a more stylized illustration, less of a collage of photographs and illustrations together, but actually this is probably the closest to what I had in mind. But it even further simplified it. Again, it's not perfect, but it's a really good example of how things could work. In a more illustrative version of this. So yeah, definitely worth giving ChatGPT a try. I'm gonna download this as well and open it up here in Photoshop. Yeah, it's surprisingly good. I like the portrait and the Jaguar's head as well. I like how the tree is set up, and of course we could very quickly just fix little details like that shouldn't be overlapping the tree. There are certain things that can be removed as well, but the barren trees on the left side work really well. How it's very simply, in a very simple way, it's showing there. Let's see how Photoshop is gonna refine that bit there. And let me just read, there's a couple of questions here. So someone, Nhi Wai Yan, is asking, is AI taking our job or replacing our job? It's a good question and a very, very difficult one to answer. I don't know. I hope not. But at the moment, I feel like it's a tool that you can utilize if you want for your work or not. As a designer, I feel like it's more about understanding how it can save time for you in the conceptualization phase of the work. So it didn't get to a point where I would say it's completely replacing the creator. The creator is still the one that's filtering what's comes out of an AI tool. So you as the creator should have control over what you create. But as we can see it's getting better and better at understanding what we want to create. So, I mean, this is quite impressive what we have here. It's not exactly my sketch, but it is a very good take on the concept that I had, including the patterns, tribal motifs, the radiating sun in the background, the birds, the dead tree, the global warming, the heat on the left side with that big sun disk in the background, the cow or cattle farm aspect, and then the dead trees and the machine. The only thing is that the tree doesn't look like exactly like that kapok tree, because the branch, I mean the roots are a little bit different, but again, that's something that we could easily fix and refine. So yeah, I am going to come back to this one for sure. I'm going to just save it and keep it here in Photoshop. So we have my sketch, this version, and this version. But then I wanted to also bring in the ones from ChatGPT, because I feel like there was a couple of things here that could be useful. But now looking at these after seeing what was created in ChatGPT, I feel like stylistically that one I prefer, even though this looks more like a collage, because this looks more like a photograph, and then the other details put together as a collage, so it's truer to the original reference. But I'm gonna just still download this and open it up in Photoshop, and also let's download this one, and I'm gonna put these together. Oh, that's the same one, sorry. Let's download this one. And then let's download maybe that one. Okay, so I'll save this one as well. I'm just going to call it, yeah, that's fine, the way it's called there. Okay, so if we go into window, arrange, and 4 up, we can see these all next to each other. And I would say that even though this composition on the top right is not exactly my original composition that I had in mind, but it's still visually the most pleasing. And that is probably the direction that can be refined further. So if I wanted to use one of these as a starting point, that is definitely the most appealing one. So the other ones, a second most appealing one I would say is this one, and then that's the third one that was created in Midjourney. So I just wanted to show how I would do the same workflow if I wanted to stay more closer to the collage aspect of things. So if I go back to my original image, my sketch, and I wanted to, for instance, bring in a tree. Of course, the first thing that you would normally do on stock sites is to look for images of what you need. So if I go on FreePick, I can go back to home, and I want to find a giant kapok tree. And then we can see some really cool images. Now, one thing that you can choose is to exclude AI generated images if you want to stay true to what these trees actually look like. So, but even then, you will have to filter, because this one definitely is not a kapok tree. That's, I think it is a, what is it called? Joshua tree, yes. But yeah, so if we went down on sticking to real photos, it would have to be a combination of multiple images. So most of the time you wouldn't find the right perfect image that like includes every little detail. I'm just going to look on the next page. Maybe we'll find something a bit better. Yeah, like most likely I would use a tree for the trunk. an image for the trunk, an image for the top, and an image for the roots. Yeah, I don't understand why it's not. It should be a bit more specific, because these are not kapok trees, but they are baobab trees. Yeah, I mean, that's a nice one of the roots. If I download this one, what I would normally do is we could use the select subject feature now, which should give us a fairly good selection of the tree. If not, we can obviously refine the mask, but we can not remove that, just turn it into a mask. Yeah, there you go. And then we can just use the opacity mask and mask out what we don't need from this image. We could even just make a selection and fill it in with black. That's even faster. And yeah, so essentially this is how I would have worked on these images before. I would start combining them together and then build up the composition. And then obviously we would need to use filters and refine the selections and the mask to make sure that we are only seeing the details, and also they are ending in details that look good. And I'm still doing this for many projects, but I'm not going to have time to do this for this project. So this is a workflow that is still relevant, and you have full control over where things go. The main issue with this is that it takes a lot of time finding the right references, and of course you should use only images that you have the rights to use. So if you have access to stock images that you paid for, and I feel like FreePic is one of the best sites in that aspect, that it gives you unlimited access to stock images. It is a very good site to look for them. But again, like Sarah is pointing out, that none of these are kapok trees, which I had a feeling like I could tell. The roots of this maybe could go, but again, like I'm not a botanist. I wouldn't be able to tell for sure, but the roots at least look more similar to it. But anyway, it would take a lot of time to look for them. Now, if you again rely on AI, of course you can get results much faster. If I go into the AI image generator in here in FreePic as well, let's just go in there instead of relying on the stock images. If I just say giant kapok tree, white background, yeah, that's it. And I want, yes, a portrait format. So let's see what we get. Maybe we can do giant ancient kapok tree. Let's see how close this is going to be. So the reason I'm showing this is because, oh yes, and it's important to mention that we want a photo of. The reason I'm showing this is because it's important to consider where AI fits into your workflow. You can choose to go down the photo bashing workflow route, but still use AI for certain assets. So you instead of relying on AI to create the entire composition, you can just use it to generate the assets exactly based on the description that you're using. So I mean, these look on the top still like illustrations, but starting to look a little bit more like photos. And I don't think they look like kapok trees still. maybe if we use those other terms for this tree, let's see if I include the terms that were mentioned here. So maybe we can use the Latin name. Huge, bulky roots. Let's do that. Or buttress trees. I included that as well in the prompt. Okay, so they are starting to look more similar to what we need. Buttress, yes. Sarah, you can tell me whether you think this one is starting to look more similar to what we wanted to achieve. I mean, this one failed. Yeah, I think these look more close to what we wanted to create. I would say this one is quite a good one. Again, let me know if you disagree, but these are definitely closer to what I had in mind. So yeah, if I chose to have one of these, in my composition, so I'm just going to download this as PNG. Yes. By the way, we could already edit this image directly in here if we wanted to, but we could drop it into Photoshop and then remove the background there. So if I do remove background, by the way, ChatGPT is the only tool at the moment that can generate images with transparency baked in. So that's also a really cool feature. But yeah, so if I use AI, instead of building up a tree from parts and then trying to put them together, a generated image might get you much further ahead. And of course, you can still apply things like, if I convert this to a smart object once again, I can apply puppet warp on it, with which I can easily straighten it out if I want it to be more straight. So I can straighten like that. I can also drag the roots down a bit. I can also move the branches out a little bit like that. And yeah, so you can very quickly fix any issues that you have on the tree and really align it to your composition the way you wanted it. Now the main question is, how would you then make half of it look more dead than the other? That's again a simple combination of two things. So the trunk wouldn't really change much. It would just simply be the top of the tree. And if I turn off my sketch and maybe just have that background color that we had maybe in this composition, I'm just going to sample that sepia tone and then jump back into the image that we had here, and then I create a new solid color with that. If I just then make a selection here and I say fill this in with dead tree branches, let's see what ChatGPT, Photoshop generative fill can do. So it should understand the context And yeah, I mean, it's did a half job there. It still left some of the branches in, but again, instead of relying on generative fill, you could just come back here, and then maybe we could just say reimagine this, and there is already the image in there, and then we could just change it, tree, that tree, if I just say that tree, we probably can say keep composition. I will copy the prompt actually. Dead photo of dead ancient tree, huge bulky roots, and keep composition. Yes, let's reimagine this. So it should recreate the composition, having that tree there. No, it didn't remove the branches. Interestingly, it made it look more realistic though, which is interesting. It has a little bit more details on it now, and they look actually even more like the tree. Oh yeah, but I didn't put the word dead in there. No, it was there. Don't see it in the prompt on the right. No, what doesn't matter. I don't want to waste more time on this. All I'm saying is, if you are building things up from scratch, it's going to be more time consuming, but you will have more control. So you will be able to very easily affect the areas that you want. So even here, it might make more sense to just simply mask out what you don't want to see. So half of this tree, we could even just use a rectangular marquee selection. Something like that can be masked out. And then we can give Photoshop another try of creating this and say dead tree branches of an ancient kapok tree. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I mean, the prompt adherence in Firefly is all over the place. So it's like, obviously it's copying what we already have in the image, so it's not really doing what we want. But anyway, we could obviously go into finding references for a dead tree, like this one, for instance, and then start combining the two together. But this is a route that, of course, so again, going back to my sketch, it would take much longer than the time that we have here in this workshop. So what I'm going to do is to try to switch back to that image that I feel like was the most effective in terms of most aesthetically pleasing, which was this one. It's more illustrative, but let's see what we can do with this. So if we were to continue working with this, what is missing here? Well, first of all, we would need to revisit the brief and think about what needs to be in this composition. And one of the things that I feel like, without overwhelming the image, that would be important to clarify is obviously the typography we would have to add, but then is it really representing the Amazon? I feel like it does. I mean, this face is highly stylized, so it's hard to tell whether it's someone from the Amazon region or somewhere else, but I feel like it could work for that. The proportions of the details can be a little bit off, like Probably the jaguar could be placed a little bit somewhere else. It's currently too close to the face of the woman. It might work better to be further down here. But again, that is fairly quick and easy to fix if we wanted to. But for now, I don't mind having them along this line. So just looking at it from a compositional point of view, if I look at these obviously aligned together, it works quite nicely. However, it feels not balanced at the moment. There's a little bit too much going on the right and a bit less on the left side. So I would definitely want to balance things out a little bit more. But also we need to think about what is the text that we would want to include in here. So if I jump back to my board, I think one of the first and main text that the charity wanted to use is education that changes lives. So that's one of the main copy. Or a bit more in context, uncover illicit gold mining's impact and the fight to save the Amazon rainforest. So this could even be the main title, and that could be the tagline. So if we were to put these in here, we can start to see how this could work together. So if that was the main title, education that changes lives, just going to do a quick mock-up of this. Could easily be in the center, or it could also be on the top. For now, I'm just going to keep it in the middle somewhere here. I feel like we need more space on the left side, this composition. And then we want to have more text on the bottom, which would be this text. And then actually for this, I will just use a text frame, and we can use maybe din demi, and we can reduce the size. And we can use this dark blue color. And then it's just an empty layer. Let's just merge these together. Okay. Now, if I go into view, guides, new guide, I can add a 50% vertical guide, so I would know exactly where the center point is. So this is how you can tell that visually the composition is not balanced, because if I place it exactly in the middle, it feels really heavy on the left side, on the right side. And that is mainly because of that pattern that we have there that sticks out. So I'm just quickly mocking this up. I'm not set on the fonts that I'm using at this stage. Yeah, by the way, if we select the background, we can align the text exactly in the middle. Okay, so if I come back to the image, I can move these somewhere else. So I can move these details around. Maybe that one can be placed on the left side there. I can just remove the background on it. So, oh, I didn't remove it. Yeah. I'm not even sure if we should have any symbols on the left side, but for now, I will just turn this into Smart Object, and just as a placeholder, I will keep it there. And then this one again, I'm going to remove. I'm using the quick mask. Remove that and that. Quick mask shortcut is Q, and then I use Command or Control J to separate this. Actually, I should use Command or Control Option J to cut it out. Why is it still there? New layer via cut. Yeah, no, it's Shift key. And then let's do remove background on this. Let's see if it works. No. Did it work? No. So I will just use magic wand, mask, and then also mask this out and that, and then make a smart object out of this. And I think these patterns can be lowered in opacity. They don't have to be so intense. And already starting to look a little bit more balanced simply by moving these around. And again, I wouldn't fully rely on these generated details if I had a bit more time. But for now, I just want to demonstrate how I would work on this, and just stay tuned because I'm going to show a couple of other interesting techniques soon. So I'll just cut that out as well on a new layer, and then sample. Yeah, contiguous is fine now, like that. Mask, and then smart object. I'll make it smaller. I probably can stay here where it was originally. Just made it a bit smaller. Okay, so they are not so dominant. And let's remove our guide. So I'm just going to hide the guide from there in the middle. And then I think it still doesn't feel balanced, mainly because of the jaguar's head. I think that is the main element that really tips off the balance. So even though we have the same exact distance from the left and the right, so the tree is in the middle, it still doesn't feel balanced. I'm just gonna replace this color with an actual solid color layer, like that. Yeah, so once again, we need to fix the balance of the image. So if I go in and get this jaguar out of here, like that. Again, I will use the quick mask. Yeah, that looks fine. I'll cut it out, and then I feel like it would work better down there, or even actually it has to be behind her to make sense for the size that we have here. So I'm just gonna put it down there. I'll just first make it into a smart object, just so we have the original resolution, but I will make it smaller. And to keep the balance of the composition, I think it makes sense to have it there. Let's add the mask, and then mask it out, and then we can also mask out these details. Yeah, that's looking a bit better. And then we can just continue. And by the way, another thing is that we have this circular shape on the left side, not continuing exactly on the right side. So if we were to create this this circle, it would look more like, unless it's like an ellipse, it would look more like this. I want to make sure it's symmetrical, so it would have to look more like that. So this shape that we have here on the right, it should only be going until here. So how do we do this? The best way to do this would be to use shape, an actual shape with the ellipse tool, and we can sample the color from that color on the right side, because I like that color. And then we would just draw this back the way I've done it before. I want to keep it in the center as well, so we will have it not perfectly following that shape, but very close. So there's the center point. I think it's pretty much aligned to it. And then we can have this behind the illustration. And then from the illustration itself, I'm going to mask out these details. So I will use the quick selection tool, and then maybe magic wand as well to get in here and between the leaves. Actually, quick selection tool might be easier, like that. And then let's just mask that out. So there you go. That's already closer to following the actual shape of a circle than before, like that. And it is starting to feel more balanced. I think this yellow detail here as well can be removed, so I'm just going to quickly remove that. Maybe with magic wand is easier. Yeah, mask that out as well. And I'm just going to sample that color if I go back to the actual image, so we will be able to use it. Actually, we have that color somewhere higher up, but I'm gonna make sure we have it saved. Put it on a new layer up there. So let's hide these details and these, and then the same here. Okay. And then I feel like it's starting to come together. We can add a bit more of this thickness here. It feels like we lost a bit of that nice strong outline on the face. I quite like that in the beginning. Yeah, something like that. And then the lines and the birds emanating from the center can also be moved closer. So I'm just going to select this. And to be honest, these I will completely remove. I'll just mask them out because I feel like we could do a better job on these. Not on this layer, this one. Let's turn off the properties layer. Although I like these, we could easily redraw those if we wanted to. But yeah, now it's starting to feel more balanced compared to what we had before. So I'm just gonna remove, or maybe keep this color. By the way, we could include as some shapes or lines, or even on this shape. No, and yeah, actually I prefer it to be different color from the one on the left. Yeah, that was a better color for it. Or maybe we could use green. Green would blend too much into the tree. I quite like that magenta color there. Okay, so one other thing I noticed is this line blending into the cow. That's something that we can fix on a separate layer. I would just use the healing tool, and I'm just gonna remove this line, and then hopefully that's enough. Okay, still connecting to there. I'm just gonna paint over this with the clone stamp tool. Make sure sample all layers is on with a hard edge. Yeah, it was just a little distraction that I wanted to fix. And then I think we are coming together, things are coming together quite nicely. In terms of typography, I most likely would have this in 2 lines, and I will keep it in the center as before. Yeah, it's in the center. And then I would probably go and move down everything here a bit further there. And then before I forget, I wanted to add those birds in back there, but I would like to have the parrots flying, the macaws flying there. Now, I'm pretty sure Firefly won't be able to do this within Photoshop, but I can give it a try. So if I make a selection here, I could say I want macaws flying. Let's see how that's going to look like. Okay, yeah, so as I expected, both aesthetically, both in terms of composition, that's not going to work. So I can't rely on Photoshop creating these for me. Someone is asking, can I start from the beginning? You can rewind to the beginning already if you want. You can start from the beginning. You don't have to watch the live session, so you can go and watch it already at this point from the beginning if you wanted to. I'm just going to save these changes that I've done so far, and then so what was I planning to do? I was planning to add the macaws on there. So for that, I think if we go back to ChatGPT, it's probably the best place for this. So instead of changing what was created here, create 4 macaws flying towards the right side in the distance. Actually, to the right side. Keep them maybe just silhouettes. Create 4 create silhouettes of 4 macaws flying towards the right side, transparent background. Let's see what happens. I don't think it should change the image above because it should create a new image for us. And I may have missed a step of saying it needs to be an illustration, but because I said silhouettes, even though I probably misspelled it, it's a word I always misspell. I think it's gonna do a fairly, oh yeah, there you go. These are beautiful. Again, you could go on stock sites and find these, but I feel like this is perfect for what we need. And once again, you don't have to force ChatGPT to create final results for you. We could even keep them the same way they are, but I think it would work better if we spread them out a bit. So I'm just going to rasterize this layer first, separate it. So I'm going to use the selection tool. If I can make a selection, Command Shift J, separate. Command Shift J, separate. And then one last one. Command Shift J, separate, and then each of these can be a smart object, and then we can make them smaller. Oh yes, before I make them smart objects, actually I can do that after as well. So we make them smaller, even smaller. I feel like would work better, something like that. So this is quite important because we want to be accurate to the Amazon rainforest. And now I can put them into a group, and I can add a color overlay on that group, and I can use maybe this green color. I think is quite nice. And then we could even have a different group, so maybe have some of them with different color, like these two. I can move out of this group, put it in another group, copy over the color overlay, but this time we will use that color or maybe this color. So I think that's quite nice, just to have a bit of variety there. And then can even move them a bit closer. And these groups, by the way, could go behind. We'll just call it macaws. We can even move behind the illustration, so they are flying out from behind it. Again, notice how I'm trying to keep it closer to the illustration instead of spreading too much out to the right side, so to keep it again balanced. But now, even though that's the center line in the composition, I feel like we could cheat a bit with moving everything to the left. So if I select the whole illustration, including that ellipse that we have here, so this is all the illustration comp, we can move it slightly to the left together with the macaws, just a bit like that. So it's not in the visual center, not in the physical center point, but it feels more visually balanced this way, I believe. Okay, so the next step after this, again, because we are running out of time, I'm not going to be able to do everything that I would normally do here. The next step I would do after this is to start drawing over certain details. And that's again something that I would do by hand or using a stylus. So I would be drawing over certain details or adding those emanating lines. So just as a quick example, I would be using brushes for this. There's lots of brushes in Photoshop that could work well for this. Maybe something like this is a quite nice brush. So I would be going behind the comp, and to create a more interesting edge, I would be adding some texture here like that, so it's not just a boring line, but instead has a little bit of texture. And I would use that same brush to add some lines like these, and maybe we could use even some lines like that, like zigzag lines. And I would be putting these here on the top. But again, it's important to see this in context, so to make sure that we don't overpower the right side compared to the left side. I probably wouldn't draw in between the birds. Again, I don't have my stylus on my desk at the moment. I only have my iPad, so I'm not gonna struggle too much here. I forgot to have my stylus ready, but yeah, I'm going to just keep that as a reference there. Maybe that additional line, maybe a few more lines here. Sorry, I just have to add maybe one more just to keep it a bit balanced, and then a smaller one there. Yeah, okay. And then it might be a little bit over the top because the birds are already adding those emanating lines, so it's a question whether we need these or not. You can decide whether that actually helps or not. Maybe we could use these birds to serve the purpose of those lines and maybe spread them out a little bit more. These two, by the way, look almost identical, and even that one. So again, that's something that we could fix by just adjusting their wings a little bit. But I'm not going to spend too much time on these small details because it's more about just getting the general composition in place. And I think changes lives is the important thing here. That's the most important part of the text. So that's something that I wanted to really highlight. So that could get a bit more prominent color. Like this color is not overused in the composition, but it's a very strong color that has a lot of contrast to the background. So I think that could be used there. That's quite nice together. And then this one maybe can be a little bit more stronger as well, like bold italic. Actually, let's not do italic. Let's see how does extra bold look like. Yeah, I think that's a little bit more of a statement there at the bottom. And then one other thing that could be added to this composition is a couple of additional words that or keywords that we've seen here. So like the mercury contamination, endangered species, global warming, so on and so forth. These could be added in the composition if we wanted to have a bit more textual information. I'm not going to fill up the poster with these, but that's again something that could be blended in certain areas, certain parts we could have more. One thing that could also be added is to have maybe some more texture in the background. So for this we could find on FreePic maybe something like a paper texture. So if I come to the home and search for paper texture, I think something like this could work quite nicely, like more organic detail. If we download this, we could drop that into Photoshop and then drop it at the bottom. Actually, drop it on the top, so it will have effect on everything, and then we would set it to overlay. So that brings things quite nicely together. If we look at closer, it adds that texture on the background but also on the foreground. So without it looks like this, and width looks like that. It slightly changes the color. If you don't like the change of color, then you just have to use desaturation on the layer that you use. So press Command U. If it's a smart object, that will become a smart filter, and this way now we can see that without and with the color is not changing. We are just adding the texture. So that's actually also added on the text itself, which helps. And then there's a lot of other things that we could do to bring this together, but the main thing here that I wanted to finish on is that I would want to see if there is any obviously one aspect that is important, that the resolution of this image is not great. I mean, right now what you get from ChatGPT is 1000 by 1500 pixels, so that's it's not print ready. If it's like a smaller leaflet, it's fine for that, but if we wanted this to be like an A1 poster or A2 size poster, it would definitely not be enough for that. So one thing that I would do at this point is take off all the text, although we can upscale with text as well, but you can check directly here within Photoshop how the upscaled version would look like. Most of the time you would start seeing a lot of pixelation and losing detail, but what I'm going to do is to save this as a JPEG, and I'm just going to call it I'll just call it Magnific, because I'm going to put it into Magnific. So we jump into Magnific, which is, I find it to be the best at upscaling, enhancing images. It's not upscaling, it's more enhancing. So if we go to Magnific Upscaler, we can drop the image in here, and then we will see how well it can upscale this. So let's just do 4 times upscaling. That would give us a much larger image, but maybe before we do 4 times, I'm just going to stick to 2 times, and I am going to use the same prompt that we had in ChatGPT. So this one I think was the one that's closest to what we need, so I drop that in here. I find that in Magnific Upscaling or enhancing images, you don't even have to normally have the prompt in, but I just double check that the text is fine. Yeah, it seems fine. And then optimize for art and illustration. In this case, I feel like is important to choose. You could save your own presets, by the way, if you want. I am not going to change anything. I will keep the default settings for this. So this is going to result in twice as big image size, so 2000 by 3000 roughly. And then we will see how that turns out. And if we are happy with the result, if it stays close to the original style and textures, then we could try at an even higher upscale resolution increase. So we're just going to give this a quick try. And by the way, I would most likely spend more time drawing over details here. So even this vehicle here, which looks like a bulldozer, I would most likely turn that into an actual harvester by manually drawing over it. So have maybe the crane coming out this way, holding some logs, and that would help to balance out the right side with the left side. But again, like I said, also the roots as well I would change slightly, but that's more time consuming. Now let's take a look at what Magnific created. So the face changed quite a lot. but if we zoom closer, we can see, let's just go on the right side, we can see that it sort of kept some aspects of those textures, but at the same time we are losing also some very nice details that were there in the original, and yet we are starting to lose that nice simplified and stylized details that we had here as well. So in these cases, what you can do is to reduce the creativity, and resemblance can be increased maybe to 2, and then we could be a little bit more specific. Vintage, vibrant montage, about vibrant illustration, and we could say vibrant illustration with halftone textures. Yeah, let's do that. So I'll do one more just to see if that gets a better result or not. But yeah, so upscaling is a critical part of the workflow. So if you rely on AI generated images, it probably is better to do upscaling before you end up finalizing everything. So when you want to add the small little details, like even drawing over details manually, I would do after the enhancing and upscaling, because then you are already working with the high resolution image, and then you can add a lot of small little details and refinements, and even like fixing a lot of things makes more sense to do once you have the higher resolution result. So yeah, this is what we got, I think, now with the updated prompt. Let's zoom a little bit closer. Yeah, slightly better. Still changes certain details, but it is looking more close to the original. Yeah. Most of the details look more similar. It changes even the pattern a bit, we can see here. So yeah, it has done a better job on the Jaguar. I feel like it looks a little bit better after upscaling. And the birds flying, they don't really look like parrots anymore. Again, that's something would have to be fixed. The tree has a little bit more detail on it. And then here on the left side as well, a little bit more detail. So I feel like this is probably a better setting that we used here. So with this, I can try a 4 times upscale. So let's see. Let's see how that is going to turn out. And then we will wrap up soon after this. So once we have the final result from Magnific, we can bring it back into Photoshop and then just put the text back on it. And of course, with the text, again, there's a lot more we could do and refine it, but that's just like a preview or placeholder for now, just to see how it would work. Now, because we are doing a 4 times upscaling, it will take a little bit longer, but we should get the results soon. And by the way, in Magnific, you can easily switch to grid view now. You can favorite the ones that you liked. You can tag them as well, and you can quickly search for prompts or tags. It's a really, really useful tool, and I still feel like it's by far the best for upscaling assets that you use in your compositions. When it comes to like a full composition like this, there will be quite a lot of things that you would have to refine later if you want to, again, maintain creative control and if you are sold on certain aspects that you liked before. Yes, Jenny, the whole workshop is going to be available to watch anytime. So yeah, you can watch the whole thing from the beginning to the end. And we are also planning to release a course soon where we work on projects like this, where we combine Adobe applications with AI and see how the two can be used together. And how to find the right balance between generative AI and the software skills that we have in the Adobe applications. Okay, so almost done, hopefully, with upscaling. And once it's ready, we will be just finalizing the composition there, and then that's it. So by the way, 4000 by 6000 pixels, that will give us, I think, the required dimensions or print size. So if I go back to Milanote, if we just look at our brief, the original brief, where we had the size, so we need a 24 by 36 inches portrait format. So that's what we need to be able to match. We can already set that up here in Photoshop. So 24 by 36, and we want to print by 300 pixel per inch, CMYK. Yeah, that's the size that we need. And then we can already bring in the other image that we had, I mean the text. So these two, copy over here. And yeah, you can see how much smaller our previous composition was now that we place it in. And even the aspect ratio is slightly different. But we got the final version. And if I keep it zoomed out, it's slightly noticeable, especially on the face, but mostly it kept the details. And if we zoom closer, we can see it did a really good job at adding the information that was obviously missing. So it did a very good job at rendering the tree. The parrots are not perfect, but they can easily be refined because they are just silhouettes. The most important detail is the face. It created some imperfections. These veins we can remove easily. The nostril I can fix as well manually. So there's a couple of things. The eye, actually, I quite like the new one. And again, the Jaguar, I prefer the new one compared to the original one. The tree looks quite good. Yeah, most of the details look really good. The texture is still there, it's visible. Now it's baked into the composition because I use that in Magnific. Again, that's something that you can decide to include or not. But in this case, it was baked in because I uploaded it together. And then you can see when I drop this in here, it's going to hold up even in actual pixel size. So this is the actual pixel size. It looks perfectly fine. I mean, these tiny little details this close up that don't look as good as they looked on here. So this I still prefer the texture here. So that's again something that would require more time to refine and to perfect. But just as a quick example, I would definitely fix these details. So I would paint over these veins and I would remove them. And I would also, like I mentioned, I would refine the texture. I might even use a separate texture to bring in here. So not everything you can upscale without losing quality. But it did a really good job on most of the image. So it's there's a couple of quick fixes we can do, like these details here. As you can see, we could already remove. But generally, now if I just drop that, we can just bring in this color fill layer, drop it at the bottom. Now we have the size that we needed. So we needed once again in inches. That's the size that we needed, and now we have 300 pixels per inch to print that out. So Now that we have the right size, I think this is when I would go in and manually paint over the details. Maybe utilize AI still for certain details, but generally here I would start refining everything down to the smallest details, like the eyes, the textures on the face, add small lines wherever it's needed. The macaws need to be fixed again, or they can be brought in back again from the original silhouettes and just upscale them individually. The roots could be refined a bit, make them more characteristic, and definitely the harvester machine would need to be made more realistic, so and more recognizable. Yeah, so that's generally the workflow that we had time for in this workshop. I hope you found it useful. So just to see where we came from, I am going to just put side by side my sketch and the final result. So we have the final version here. I will save this as on the computer. Save this as final. And we can show next to it the other one. I will save this as well. Yeah, so these are the two. If I put them side by side, from the sketch to the final version. The sketch was probably a bit more complex, maybe showing a little bit more details in certain areas, but in general the final composition that we got includes pretty much everything that I had in my original sketch. It has maybe just these radiating lines and maybe some spirals that are missing, but generally we have everything there. Yeah, the main thing that's missing right now is the harvester holding the logs. I think that's an important detail, and like I mentioned before, if I had that in there, it would actually fix the balance between the left and the right side. So I don't want to waste any more time. It wouldn't be too complicated to do and to fix that. But like you can see, there is a lot of experimentation that goes into getting close to a composition that you come up with and that you have a vision that you want to achieve, to be able to recreate that with AI. And it will never be 100% perfect, even if you find a very good match with the right style, with the right composition. It's all about experimenting with different tools, but then also spending the extra effort and time to refine that, enhance it, get it in the right resolution, and then doing the manual refinements in Photoshop or in other tools that you prefer to work with. So it's like I mentioned before, not giving up on your creative vision is important. So you want to maintain the creative control, but there will be still some sacrifices along the way. It all depends on how much time you have. If you have a lot of time, I would love to do an illustration like this myself from scratch, and this still could be just a preview to a customer to show how this looks, and if they really like it, and if there is enough budget for it, from this point on I could say this can actually be a vector artwork which I can fully rebuild if this is the direction that they like. And that's an amazing safety to have a preview that you can show, and a reference that you can work from, that the client is 100% happy about. So having that security and being able to create something quickly that you can use for this purpose, I think is an amazing and it's an amazing opportunity for creatives. So yeah, it's of course it's a controversial topic, like some of you mentioned in the chat. Is it going to replace designers and illustrators? there is that chance, and already I'm sure a lot of customers, clients prefer to just use ChatGPT instead of hiring illustrators and designers. So there's a lot of jobs already lost because of AI. But I feel like professional designers and illustrators, to a varying degree, will have to utilize AI if they want to stay in the business, because it helps to be more productive. It helps to be more realize some ideas faster and experiment more before we fully commit to a final composition or final style. So yeah, it would have taken me to achieve this, whether I was drawing this in raster or vector format, it would have taken me at least 3 or 4 times longer than what we've done here. Even though I was playing around in different tools and experimenting, it was still extremely fast. So yeah, that's the benefit of utilizing AI. So hopefully that was interesting. I hope you found this useful, and thank you for joining me. And if you are interested in future workshops like this one, keep an eye on the channel, subscribe, and you can also expect some new videos coming out soon on some cool tools and new products that I've tested recently. So hopefully you will join me next time. Thanks a lot, and see you next time.